Thank you very much. Considering that Dr. Oschmann has now rested for some minutes, we would now invite him. But before I invite him to the podium, I'd like to tell you a bit about him. He's originally from Germany and is Vice Chairman of the Executive Board and Deputy CEO of Merck since January 2015. Prior to this, he was responsible for Merck's pharma business as member of the Executive Board from 2011 to 2014. Before joining Merck, Dr. Oschmann worked for the pharma company MSD, where he served as president of emerging markets. This is among many other things he has done in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Canada. Dr. Stefan Oschmann is the president of the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Associations and vice president of European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Association. We have listened to UNESCO talk to us about moving forward. And this summit is about putting together businesses and policymakers. So as a business sector, as Merck, where do we go from here? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm here today to address basically two questions. Why are we here, and why is our company involved in these efforts? I'm giving a lot of speeches at different occasions, but I don't remember any speech recently where Africa didn't play a role. We in our company, we have a passion for the continent for many reasons. There are factual reasons. For instance, demography and economic development. This world will have a population of 11 billion people, where about 4 to 5 out of these 11 will be from Africa. If we look at economic development, despite all the challenges that we are facing, we will see that Africa will be a major economic power. We all observe that through how our media work, that we focus on challenges, we focus on sometimes negative news in the public. And that is okay, and it helps us to pinpoint challenges and to direct resources toward problems that need to be addressed. At the same time, this, from my point of view, creates a certain skepticism, especially vis-à-vis Africa. Those of us who live in Africa, who work in Africa, or who are at least, like we are very closely associated with the countries in Africa, do know that we have plenty of challenges, but we also know that there are sizable, highly significant positive developments. And it is important that we highlight that too, because otherwise we breed skepticism about engagement and investment in Africa. So we as a company, we are convinced that Africa has a bright future, and we are convinced that we need to do something for capacity building in Africa, especially in the science field. But there are also personal reasons. For instance, I personally, after my postdoc, I started my career working for different UN agencies, for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and for the International Atomic Energy Agency, and also for the World Health Organization. I was building, my job was building scientific infrastructure in Africa, and that is something that I have kept sort of inside me, and that keeps driving me. And I was in the 1980s, when there was still a lot of post-colonialism in the approach of how we developed what we called aid at that time. But I learned many lessons, and I have personally developed a vast network of friends and colleagues in science in Africa. We have specific challenges ahead of us in the health field. We all know that. We have seen that the Sustainable Development Goals have recently been adopted by the United Nations, with several of them being specifically related to health. We've seen in the past that the... I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me? Yes. We've seen that the Millennium Development Goals have not been achieved in all areas, but I would say that in the field of health we have made more progress than in any other area. That, to me, again, is an example of why it does make sense to get engaged in the field of health. We have more or less 3 to 4 major challenges. We have our sort of traditional big three, as we all know, HIV, malaria, and TB. There are tremendous problems that still need to be solved in this area, but most experts believe that we are seeing very significantly positive trends, both when it comes to treatment rates in these diseases, as well as prevention efforts, and we also see enhanced R&D output of novel compounds that address these challenges. We have the classical area of so-called neglected tropical diseases. I'm so very happy that this year's Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology has been awarded to the scientists who developed ivermectin. So maybe if the Nobel Prize goes to neglected tropical disease work, then we can maybe drop the N within the entities going forward. We've also seen that partnerships between international organizations, governments, civil society, and companies like ours, such as the so-called London Declaration on Neglected Tropical Disease, has achieved major progress. We're seeing that we're coming close to the elimination of some of the major challenges. We see growing challenges within the field of NCDs, non-communicable diseases. In today's world, many more people die of non-communicable diseases in low and middle income countries than people die in high income countries, and more people die of NCDs than they die of the traditional problems that I was just talking about. So that also requires a special approach. We as Merck, and also the organization that I stand for, IFPMA, and our industry is undertaking serious efforts to contribute toward progress in this area. And then we have novel challenges. We have the situation of antimicrobial resistance. Currently, there's a lot of focus on this. I was fortunate to have been part of a team to advise Chancellor Angela Merkel for the G7 summit. It is notable. It is highly notable that in the G7 agenda that we have such important health topics featuring at the summit, and it's also worthwhile to note that the Japanese presidency of the G7 will continue to work on this. We need to find ways to address market failure in this area, and we need to be innovative about this. And very importantly, there's this question of pandemic preparedness. The Ebola crisis has taught us many lessons. It has taught us that health systems, especially in West Africa, but in many other low-income countries, do require strengthening. And not only health systems, but also systems for doing research in the area that is most affected. The other lesson that we've learned is, however, that the incredible courage and competence of some of the governments that had to address this challenge with very limited means is something that we can build on going forward. Several African countries have demonstrated that even in the time of such incredible crisis, that they can manage a situation like this. Not everywhere. We've seen problems in a sort of very, very blatant, obvious problems in some countries, but we've seen I would say, heroism in some other countries. So we're deeply impressed by that. We've also learned that we need to do more in R&D. I'm very happy to see that 3 of our member companies, when I speak our member companies, I speak about IFPMA, have been actively engaged in developing vaccines. We need to enhance partnership. We need to enhance partnership between WHO and our industry, between NGOs and our industry, between our industry and society at large. We need to engage in an early dialogue about which pathogens we should focus on in addressing major disease, and we need to enhance the dialogue between scientific community in the public and in the private sector. And that is, I will close my speech with that appeal. We believe that the world has changed, and we should all recognize that wherever we have made progress on important topics, such as within the MDGs that I was talking about, it was because we engaged in partnership, and we put aside traditional ideological barriers about whether we are public sector or private sector or civil society or whatever. We agreed on addressing certain problems. We as Merck, we are, as my colleague said, we used to refer to us as a pharmaceutical and chemical company. In today's world, we are a science and technology company. We have very different businesses. We have a biopharmaceutical business. We have a life science tool business. We have a performance materials business. So any one of you who has an iPhone or a laptop or whatever, it's just unavoidable to be using our technology. Any one of you who works in a biomedical lab, it is unavoidable to use either what we used to call Merck Millipore, or we're in the process of integrating Sigma Aldrich reagents or machines or technologies. And those of you who work in biotechnology manufacturing are also using our technology. Those of you who work in the clinic are hopefully in touch with our technology. So we are a company that is where science and technology is at the core, and this is why we're very proud to be able to contribute to this event under the patronage of UNESCO and highly reputable scientific institutions. We wish you success, and in order for you to have more time to work, I will now end my speech. Thank you very much.